Hi, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, welcome and thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar. We do hope that you find the presentation today, both engaging but also relevant to some of the challenges that your clients are currently facing in today's cybersecurity landscape. Quickly, just want to introduce myself. My name is Spencer Edgel. I'm the SonicSentry sales specialist here on the D&H Modern Security team. So following the call here today, if you'd like any additional details or want to learn more about how to get things started, I'll be your best point of contact here to get the ball rolling. One other thing I wanted to mention here before I kick things over to Corey, there will be some time at the end of today's session for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature, and we'll be sure to get those questions addressed before we wrap things up. Only thing left here to do is kick things over to today's guest presenter, and I am very excited to introduce Corey Clark. He's the Vice President of Threat Operations over on the SonicWall side, and he'll be covering all things SonicSentry here for us today.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. As you said, long title, Vice President of Threat Operations. Basically what that means is not only am I the brains behind the operations, but I'm self-proclaimed good looks of the operation. I started off as a MSSP where we were providing security services like much of you are doing, to the point where SonicWall decided to acquire us. And so now I'm doing it at a much larger scale as the SonicSentry brand. Now, diving into it. So why are we talking today? Because, well, we're seeing the same thing. Now, we're just coming out of what I call the threat report era, right? The threat report time where every organization's releasing a threat report and they're all saying the same things, right? Where it was a bad year last year, especially for small, medium-sized businesses. Reason for that is because the adversaries over time have shifted. We've gotten into this understanding that, well, we think the adversaries are attacking the banks or large enterprise organizations because that's their honeypot. That's where they're going to get their best bang for the buck. But in reality, that's not true. They're heavily focusing and targeting SMBs because they know there's valuable data. They get access to the larger customers. Like one example I love to use is, Bob's Bagel out of New York. And, Bob loves making these bagels and he feels like he's too small. No one's going to hit him. If he gets hit, it's not a big deal, right? I can still make my bagels. Problem is, a large CPA company loves his bagels and comes in every Monday. And so when the adversaries are going through Bob's machines, they'll see that and they'll use him as a supply chain style attack to get to the larger organization. They understand SMBs typically don't have the financial budgets when it comes to cybersecurity, limited staffs, and general gaps in monitoring and response capabilities. So you can see the numbers on the screen. I don't need to read them to you, right? But it's staggering, and we see it consistently as time goes on, and it's only getting worse. So let's talk about how we're going to address this. How can we start getting better results and better outcomes from this instead of, if you can't tell, I'm not a huge fan of threat reports because, yes, it's important to see the data, but they're all going to tell you the same thing. And this is where we need to start focusing, okay, here's the data. I'm scared. What do we do to resolve this? How do I make sure I'm not a number on this threat report next year? So first thing is I like to talk about cybersecurity or your offerings in three different aspects: a prevention tool, a detection tool, and a response capability, because you need to account for all three. Now, the best way I do this is leveraging an analogy around a house and how we use security around our everyday house. So first thing you always have for your security at your house is your front door, right? That is your prevention tool. That is what controls what comes in, what comes out. That is, in my analogy, the equivalent to something like your firewall, right? And so, okay, now, will that door always stop things from getting in? So great example is, okay, what am I now? I'm about 216 pounds. I come to your front door and I'm kicking on your door and I'm kicking on your door. This is the equivalent of a brute force attack. If you're not there or you have no idea I'm kicking on that door, then you don't have a response capability. So now eventually your prevention tool is gonna fail, right? With enough time, focus, effort, I'm gonna be able to get through that deadbolt on your front door. And then now you're gonna have to deal with me when I'm in your house. Well, that's what we don't want to do. Or you start looking at smoke detectors. Everybody knows they need smoke detectors in your house. Is that going to stop a fire when your kitchen catches on fire? No, of course not. It's a detection capability, and it's an important detection capability. But that detection capability is only as good as your response capability. So if that smoke alarm is going off at your house while you're out shopping at the mall, how good is that doing for you if you don't have anybody monitoring it? Because you're going to come home to a much more bigger issue. Your house potentially is completely burned down compared to if someone was monitoring your smoke detectors. Okay, a fire started or smoke was detected. The firefighters can come in and they can put that fire out. Yes, there was some damage to your kitchen, but your whole house didn't burn down. So you reduce the cost of that particular incident. And then you can see, same thing applies to all of these, right? With cameras as an example, like in my house here, I have cameras pointed at every entry point on the outside, right? Might be the military guy. I mean, it's just what I do. Now, those cameras aren't going to stop anybody, but it's going to give me that initial detection response, right? Of, okay, it goes to my phone. It tells me, hey, there's someone at your front door. And I can look at it and say, okay, is this the Amazon delivery guy bringing me something cool from Amazon? Or is it someone that I'm not expecting? And then that will give me that chance to respond a lot quicker before a prevention capability fails. So how do we bring this into what's called an XDR? So when it comes to monitoring of these prevention tools, the detection tools, and for any type of SOC to perform any type of response capability, you need to look at your data and your cybersecurity stack with 3 different levels of telemetry. First, you have your cloud-based telemetry. These are going to be your email. This is going to be your Office 365. Or you start looking at your endpoint telemetry. So it's whether it's server logs, your antivirus, your EDR, and then you start looking at your network telemetry. These are going to be your firewalls and maybe even switches. Being able to take all those 3 levels of telemetry and feed them into a single organization or single security operations center completely enhances the ability for that SOC to help detect and respond to anomalistic activities. Now, let me walk you through an example here. So let's start on the left-hand side. There was an isolated alert. Let's say, for example, you're using something like SentinelOne as your antivirus. Cool. You're feeding your antivirus into a security operations center. 2 a.m., one of your customers, we identified Mimikatz. Mimikatz is a common malicious tool. Adversaries use it to steal passwords, right, in an environment. So our SOC sees Mimikatz quarantined on your customer server at 2 a.m. Well, we already know that's bad. We already have that internal intelligence. We know, okay, there's no admin up at 2 a.m. doing this. So we're immediately going to respond. We're going to isolate that endpoint. And we can be very successful. Pick up the phone, call you, say, hey, there's a compromise. Cool. Well, let's expand that. If we're going back to all 3 levels of telemetry, let's talk about what the SOC could do as well. So maybe you're feeding us Active Directory logs. So that account that was being used to potentially try to infect that server was C. Clark. We're going to go into your Active Directory logs to say, hey, where is that account logged in the last 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months? We can get a scope. We can investigate to say, okay, where has this account touched? So we can start doing deeper investigations to identify, is there more than one issue here? Think about a fire, right? We identified a fire. Is there more fires that we don't know about? And we're also trying to find out, how did that fire start? So now we have that information of, okay, where did C. Clark log in recently? Now we're going to move over to your firewall. So if there's a firewall in play, are you using SSL VPN? Last year was the year of the SSL VPN attacks and compromises, especially through the Akira ransomware group. They are very smart and very good at what they do. So now if my SOC can pivot over and say, okay, hey, I see activity where I see C. Clark logging into the remote server. Now I know that account touched that server as well. Now I'm creating a timeline. Came in through the VPN, went to the terminal remote server, was able to pivot over to the domain controller, right, of where I saw that original alert. Well, we can stop there, or we can now pivot over to the cloud data. Because how do a lot of these SSL VPN compromises occur? How are they getting that username and password? Business email compromise. Still the most prevalent type of attack that is successful. Your cloud data is the most at risk because that's where they are primarily attacking, and that can be the usual entry point. So now if we're able to monitor your email data or your Office 365 data, we can look for that C. Clark to say, okay, did he establish a VPN connection to log in to his 365? Do we see any type of potential phishing emails that were alerted on in his organization? Or common with Akira, since I called them out before earlier, was do we see an account login coming from a server farm within the United States? Because they know that's one of the hardest things for a security operations center to detect. Now, if we identify that, we can have that high confidence that, well, they got his username and password from a business email compromise, a phishing email. They pivoted over to his VPN. They're able to log into that terminal server, then get over to the domain controller to try to drop the malware. So I just walked you through a common and a scenario with being able to feed all three levels of those levels of telemetry into an XDR of how a security operations center like us is able to correlate that data. That is the importance of this, because you need to know where's all the fires in your house. Now, another common question I get: hey, Corey, what SIM should I get for my organization? Hey, I'm a decent sized MSP and I want to get a SIM. My customers are asking for a SIM. My answer is always the same: none. You don't want one. Now, of course, I got to follow up with, well, we got to look at the different levels of what we're looking at here. A SIM is just a log collector. So you're going to receive the logs and do nothing with them. You're going to receive millions and millions of logs a day. What are you going to do with the SIM? Well, now you say, oh, I meant a SOAR. So I have a SOAR that I'm going to do. Okay, cool. So you're going up this level of technical maturity. So now we're doing SOAR capabilities of your SIM, which allow you to do automated response. If you see this log, do this. So then the question I ask, okay, who's going to be monitoring this? How are you going to constantly update this? Because the cyber landscape is never static. It's always dynamic. The adversaries are consistently changing what they're doing. So do you have a dedicated team that will constantly be updating this SOAR? Now we can start talking about an XDR. XDR is the ability to have, like a SOAR, like a SIM, feed in that data, create responses, but a SOAR allows you the ability and has the technology to correlate data. Like I showed you earlier in that slide, the ability for the SOC analyst to correlate between all those different levels of telemetry. This platform allows you to do it automatically. Awesome. Now you yourself, you can go out and you can buy the same XDR platform I use, right? Problem is, do you know how to use it? Again, how are you going to be feeding the intelligence? Who's monitoring it 24 hours a day? And how are you responding to these events that are coming in? That is where the true value of a managed XDR comes in. When you're getting it from a liable organization that is providing you the power of what a managed XDR can do. In comes SonicSentry, us. So when we start talking about a managed XDR, as I kind of briefed through earlier, there are four main points that I'm going to cover in this. One is the endpoint side, then the cloud side, network, and then finally email. Now, you don't have to do all of them. You can pick and choose which ones you're struggling with and which ones your customers have a budget for. The power of being able to do this through D&H and through SonicSentry is you have the ability to look at your customers and say, okay, yes, I need email and cloud protection for this one. Hey, I want to do everything for this particular customer. You can pick and choose. That's the beauty of it. Now, our security operations center, we are 100% US based. So I have multiple security operations centers, but for anybody that is in the Americas, North America, South America, everything is 100% US based. And that's intentional. I don't believe in the follow the sun model. We have a lot of organizations, a lot of MSPs that deal with local governments, as an example. And so we have to make sure data residency and the access is happening from US citizens. That is our US Security Operations Center. Now, how it works. So we do things a little bit differently. It's not just signing on. You're not just signing up for a SOC. You're signing up for what's called SonicSentry. SonicSentry, just to be blunt, is a great marketing name someone came up with, right? A sentry is something that like defends a castle. Cool, like it. But what it also means is it's an inclusion of our support system and our SOC, right? So you work with any of our offerings, you work directly with our support engineers. So we require an onboarding for all of our offerings that we do. So I'm going to use SentinelOne because it's the easiest one to talk about right now. So let's say, for example, you say, hey, I want to get SentinelOne MDR offering with their SonicSentry SOC through D&H. Cool, sign me up. So Spencer signs you up. Awesome, we get you in. Cool. First thing we're going to do is require a kickoff call. Even if you've been using SentinelOne for, let's say, 8 years, doesn't matter. I have dedicated implementation and onboarding engineers that are going to work directly with you to make sure that this is successfully onboarded. Because one thing that I've learned over the years, especially with home renovations, is The tools don't do the job for you, as I kind of indicated with the XDR platform, right? So we have the experts at these tools that are going to walk you through how to properly use these tools. How do you properly set up SentinelOne? So we're going to walk you through a multi-phase onboarding to make sure that, one, you have everything you need. You know how to, this is co-managed. So you're going to have access to the platforms to make sure you know what you're doing and how to navigate it. Then how to properly set up and install it, that you're good to go. And then your policies stay, not just implemented, but stay to best practice. We send what's called health check reports twice a month to say, hey, your implementation for this customer is this, your implementation for your customer is this. So we do it for every single one of your customers that you have through any of our offerings. That we're going to do it together with you. Moving forward to the detect, mitigate, and investigate, that's on us. That's on my SOC. Now, I want to call out the term mitigate because this is kind of confusing to a lot of people. You've heard the term remediate a lot over the years. A lot of organizations will say, hey, we do remediation, when in fact they're doing what's called mitigation. If you remember, I said earlier about your kitchen fire and your smoke detectors going off. So mitigation is your kitchen caught on fire, the firefighters come in and they contain that fire and put the fire out in your kitchen. What those firefighters are not going to do is rebuild your kitchen, right? So by them containing it and putting that fire out, that's what's called mitigation. That is what we're on for 24 hours a day, right? If we see something happening, we're going to contain it, we're going to mitigate it, and then we're going to continue that investigation. I walked you through that super long, detailed explanation earlier, an example of how a continued investigation would work. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you that report that says, hey, here's how your fire started. Here's what you need to do to make sure the fire doesn't start again. That's where remediation comes in. Now, remediation is putting everything back to the way it should be. Now, again, your firefighter's not going to rebuild your kitchen. I'm not going to send a SOC analyst to your customer's location to pull a laptop and re-image it, right? You don't want my SOC analyst doing that anyways. It's not their expertise or their specialty, right? So we will give you our guided remediation, what we think you should do. Now, there might be a time, if it's a really bad day, where you need to get cyber insurance involved. We don't immediately say, nope, that's your problem, we're out. We're going to work with you through this whole thing, because when you involve cyber insurance, usually what ends up happening is they bring in their own IR team. And so we're going to work with that IR team with you to help provide every bit of information we have, what our root cause analysis is, right? All of the logs that we've exported that we've been retaining for you for 1 year, by the way. All logs that we're ingesting, we retain for 1 year. So that way, when it comes to remediation, after that IR team comes in, it speeds up that process. Because let's be honest, in the end of this, your customer's primary goal is to get back to working, because they're losing money if they're down because of an incident. So when we're talking about endpoint, we come with a lot of flexibility, and that's intentional. We're not just a one shop, right, where we just provide SentinelOne. We have many different offerings through DNH that we can provide you. So we can provide you SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, Defender, MDRs. So we like to meet you where you're at, as long as we can help support that. We provide that 24/7 threat detection. I don't believe in vanilla implementations for anything. So whether it's the SentinelOne console, the CrowdStrike console, whether it's what we do for Microsoft Defender, we don't just do out-of-the-box solutions. We have heavy customization. For example, on the SentinelOne side, I believe we have about between 30 and 50 star custom rules. We've turned on over 100 platform rules, which to just the normal organization sounds like noise, but it's not noise to us. We need all of those logs. We need all of those detections, because we are the experts that are set up to receive those and know how to weed through those to find anomalistic behaviors. Now, this could be things that we investigate that are marked as benign, or it could be things that are marked as truly anonymous. And that's the key aspect. You will only be contacted on anomalistic activity. We do plenty of investigations on activities coming through the endpoint side that are marked as benign. Those are still auditable through our ticketing system that you'll be able to see, but we're not bothering you with that noise. And then it comes into having that expertise of knowing how to properly use any of these tools to be able to perform those additional investigations and to contain those, that if there's an event, on those mitigation steps. Moving over to cloud. So typically, if we were having this webinar probably like 6 years ago, I would just be hammering home endpoint. You need a better endpoint. You need to get off those traditional based antiviruses and get over to a next gen antivirus. I think everybody understands that, and it's been hammered home by many organizations for you on getting off of those old traditional solutions. Here in 2026 and even in 2025, I was leading with everything cloud. Cloud is between I say around 84% of the alerts my SOC send day to day, week to week, month to month, all come out of cloud. The amount of attacks that are happening in stuff like Office 365 completely shadow everything else that we're monitoring. Reason for that? Well, because cloud's still newish, right, for a lot of organizations. And the amount of security that is budgeted for or used is very small, or even capabilities. There's far more endpoint solutions available to you than there is cloud-based solutions. So being able to feed in your Office 365 data, your Google Workspace data, our offering also enhances that by saying we have a bunch of other SaaS-based applications like, I'm going to move forward here so I don't say it wrong here, Salesforce, Okta, Duo, plus more. There's a lot of different solutions that we can help support and monitor on the identity aspect of things to identify, is there any particular anomalies happening on here? Looking for behaviors like, especially for feeding in your email data, looking for phishing emails that are coming in and potentially being blocked or not being blocked. Do we see anomalous activity around VPNs? Are we seeing those server farm logins? Looking at email forwarding rules to say, are these leaving the environment? Are these properly, does this look like a human wrote actually do these? Easiest identifier for us that's still happening week after week is we see forwarding rules that have just periods as the name or commas as the name. That's a calling card for the adversary. So the ability for someone to immediately respond to that and take action when that happens, lock out that account, block sign into that account, so remediation actions can happen is critical. And that's what's called dwell time. The longer it goes where that account's been compromised, the more damage is going to happen. So here's an example of a very common type of activity. And kind of shows how we enrich the ability to monitor platforms like Office 365 or Google Workspace. So first off is we got Spencer here. Spencer logs in from Washington, D.C. all the time, right? We've seen in the last month 232 logins for him coming out of Washington, D.C. Well, he travels. So he went to a conference out in Dallas, and so we saw 34 logins coming in from his account in Dallas. Everything looked good, cool. Then he went in, he traveled over to Chicago because these conferences just happen all the time. They never stop, I feel like, right? So he travels up to Chicago. We see 63 logins. We're still good, right? Everything, we check the ASNs, we're checking all the logins, and then we're able to also check what type of device is this coming from. Everything's checking out. All of a sudden, we see a login coming from Minsk, Belarus. Well, this one's easy for my SOC, right? This is not, I just saw him log in from Chicago today. All of a sudden, I see a login coming from Belarus. That's not good. His account's been compromised. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock out his account. We're going to block any type of logins, kill all sessions, and then we're going to end up picking up the phone, calling, and saying, hey, your account's been compromised. Here's what you need to do to fix this. Now, something I don't have in this slide that I need to make sure I get in going forward is maybe he did travel. Maybe he's going to all the conferences, and there's a conference over in Germany, and so there's a line showing him, a login in Germany. So we've enriched our capability of monitoring Office 365, as an example, by doing what we call device fingerprinting. So we can associate what laptop he's using because Entra stores that information. Or even we can correlate if his organization's using an RMM tool, we can coordinate and check with the RMM tool, is this his device that we're expecting him to log in from? So my SOC can respond differently. That Belarus, there is nothing that we can associate with him. We're considering that a compromise. We're immediately taking mitigation steps. But that login from Germany, we see, okay, there's enough time between that Chicago login and the time I see that Germany login. I'm also seeing the device fingerprint showing it's his laptop, same OS, same serial number, everything. Cool. My SOC's going to respond a lot differently because we weren't notified that he was traveling out of country. We're not going to immediately log off his account, but we're going to validate in this situation with most people that are on here with an MSP to say, hey, is he traveling? Now, what I love about this solution that we have, and it's called Cloud Threat Analytics. What I love about this solution is how many times we can really show the ROI. Where how many times, the MSP, we call the MSP, we say, hey, we're seeing this login coming from Germany. They pick up the phone, they call that CEO of their customer, and he hasn't even gotten off the plane yet. And that feeling, right, where, okay, the MSP calls, you call them and he's like, yep, sorry, I should have told you I'm traveling to Germany. We're good. When he hangs up that phone and he hasn't even gotten off the plane, that feeling of, holy crud, someone is really watching, that goes a very long way. That's why I say it's the best ROI. I'm used to hitting space. I'm trying to hit space on my keyboard to go to the next slide, and it's not working. Sorry about that. All right, finally, we'll get it. Oh, we got one more after this. MDR for network. So these are going to be primarily your firewalls, right? We all know, and as I explained earlier, your firewall is going to be your entry point of your house, as an example. And, for those that still use firewalls, it's necessary. Yes, we're all trying to get off firewalls eventually, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Yes, when COVID hit, so many more people were remote and firewalls aren't in play. I get it, but firewalls are still out there and they're still required, especially if you're in some type of office location. Or I'll even say, even with a lot of cloud-based environments like Azure, you still need a firewall. But that's for a whole different webinar. So the ability for someone to feed in and analyze those logs coming out of a firewall. Firewalls are the hardest for any security operations center that is not properly equipped to monitor. You can have the smallest firewall that's out there. It could be, if you're in the Sonic world, a TZ80, right? It's like that's the replacement for the Soho. And we're still receiving over 1 million flow data logs coming out of that. So you need a capable tool that has the ability to weed through those logs and pull out anomalies. And then the human aspect comes in of those anomalies that are being brought up. Are these legitimate anomalies or are these expected benign anomalies? So that's where we help come in. Now, we're agnostic when it comes to firewalls. Now, while I'm SonicWall, I can tell you I'm far better at SonicWall because they give me a paycheck. Let's be blunt. That, and I have a direct in with the pre-cert team that when we start seeing anomalous activities, people targeting SonicWalls, I can feed that data to our pre-cert team to update the botnet filter so it gets immediately blocked on everyone's firewalls. However, you don't have to come completely over to our side of the house. If you have any of these major brands out there plus more, it's just the newer ones. Some of them don't allow us to feed logs, or if I don't have a parser for them, then I don't have the ability to monitor it. But I can tell you any major brand firewalls here at SonicSentry, we can monitor them for you. Finally, email protection. Email protection is one of those things that a lot of us have had for a long time, but depends upon how we've properly implemented it. Now, I come from another heavy email security background. And, we used to I talked about legacy antiviruses earlier that uses signatures. Well, there's a legacy type of email security that was out there called a gateway, where you have to modify your MX record, point to there. You got your 800-pound gorillas in the market. Barracuda was one of them. Mimecast, Proofpoint, right? 800-pound gorillas in the legacy gateway solutions. Everything is controlled in and out from there. As time has gone on, adversaries started using that against organizations. If I can just go up and look up your MX record and say, okay, you're using this particular email security, I can leverage that against you. I can leverage any vulnerabilities or tactics that are known to kind of try to bypass that solution. Well, in comes what's called API-based email security. Now, originally, API security sucked, for lack of better words, when it came to email, because what they would do is they'd take that email and they'd instantly deliver it to the mailbox. They would analyze it and say, okay, is this bad? Well, let me pull it out. Well, you have people like Spencer that whenever he gets an email, he's instantly he's reading it, right? He doesn't like emails going unread for more than 10 seconds, right? He's got to respond to people. Well, the problem with that is, well, he's a risk, because if it's analyzing that email, it delivered it, hasn't pulled it out yet, well, he could have clicked on something, fell for something in that time. Come into our solution that we use. It owns a patent for the ability to detect and convict emails before they actually hit the inbox. Now, also, the beauty about API-based email security solutions is it gives you more bang for your buck. It's easier to manage. It's easier to implement. And then it looks at more than just email. Yes, it's doing your anti-spam. It's doing your antivirus, right? Anti-spoofing in your emails. Cool, that's awesome. It's also looking at your whole ecosystem. So if it's Office 365, it can look at your Teams. It can look at your OneDrive, your SharePoint, to look for malware within there as well. Now, a couple of other cool things. it's a lot more than just what a gateway can do. And we have different packages of what we can support through this. So a couple things, if maybe you're focused, you have some type of compliance, you need some DLP protection. You're interested in some type of security awareness protection coming in there. You look at, URL rewrites. And a link comes in, you want to help protect your customers. Those that just love to click on links that get in there, you can rewrite it so it goes and gets redirected to another location. You are expanded on the amount of capabilities and the amount of monitoring you can get through an API-based email security available through D&H. Finally, I'm getting to the end here. I know I probably haven't taken a breath since I started this. What to expect from us, from a SOC, right? What's the game plan? Well, we already talked about your onboarding. You're going to work with our support engineers, and then they're going to turn it over to the SOC to do what we do best. So starting at the bottom, first thing is we have 3 different classification of alerts. We have minor, major, critical. Minor means something was weird. Just didn't sit right with the SOC analyst. So what they're going to do is they're going to do the investigation. They're going to send you an email, and they're going to be like, "Hi, Spencer, we're seeing this. It doesn't make much sense to us. Can you help provide additional information? Because it's enough that it just doesn't sit right with me." Majority of these are going to be what I call false positives, right? They're going to be benign events, but it was enough that the SOC analyst determined they needed to contact Spencer to say, "Okay, this doesn't look right." Now, that's the least amount of alerts we send, but we will send them. Step it up to major alerts. Major alerts are the most common alerts that we send. However, it also means that there's no live compromise that was identified. It means the tool did its job. So your email security blocked that phishing email, right? Or it blocked the malicious payload that came from that email that, Spencer clicked on and he tried to download something. He fell for it. But guess what? SentinelOne blocked it. Cool. Well, there's still additional steps he's got to do. So thank you, SentinelOne, for blocking it. But why did that email get into his inbox in the first place? Why did the email security not block it? Who else did that email go to? Because maybe the CEO of the company is checking his work email at home and he doesn't have the level of security they have at the office. So there's additional steps that are going to happen in a major event to make sure that it doesn't become what's called a critical event. So a critical event, that's a bad day. That's when a bunch of, sirens go off, all the red lights, text messages get shot out, all this fun stuff, right? Critical event means we have a high confidence that there's a live compromise occurring within an environment. Every critical event requires a mitigation action. Hopefully, I've said that term way too many times in this webinar. You know the difference between mitigation and remediation. A mitigation response is always required during a critical event, and a phone call is always required in a critical event. Now, during a major event, the SOC analyst, at his discretion, has the ability to pick up the phone call. If it's kind of teetering, like, hey, they just really need to know this right now, right? I need to get someone on the phone and make sure they're looking at this because someone else is sending an email with the investigation, right? So you're going to receive a phone call. You're going to receive an email with a full investigation, and then it's already been escalated because I have different teams. I have a blue team. Those are the guys that are processing all the alerts. Then I got a purple team. Those are my escalations and my SMEs. So that it's already been escalated to an SME to kind of dive deeper and try to get that root cause analysis. Now, what happens if it's at 2 a.m.? One of my, it's between you and me, right? One of my favorite interview questions when I interview a SOC analyst, I ask them a question about, okay, your neighbor finds out you work in cybersecurity. He says he knows nothing about computers at all. And he's been watching the news and he's scared. All his family, his wife, his kids, they all use computers, and he's just seeing all these hackers and people's identities being stolen. His wife shops at Target like mine does, and Target was compromised. What does he do to keep them safe at home? I love that interview question because I need to make sure that they can talk at both levels. Can you talk at the super technical SOC analyst level, and then can you bring it down to talk to someone that doesn't know much about computers? Because if I'm calling you at 2 a.m. to say, hey, Spencer, your customer's been compromised. I need you to get out of bed. If I just called you and said, hi, Spencer, this is Corey Clark with SonicSentry Security Operations Center. We identified Mimikatz was quarantined on one of your customers' domain controllers. We also identified lateral movement. Encoded PowerShell was also identified. And just start spitting off all this garbage. The first thing you should probably do is hang up, right? Why is this person trying to sell me something? Because he just started talking at 2 a.m. No. When it comes to our security operations center, this is where I believe in the human element. I'm calling you and I'm saying, hey, Spencer, I'm sorry to wake you up. I'm with SonicWall Security Operations Center. there has been a compromise at one of your customers. Please let me know when you're ready for me to continue. And of course, you're probably gonna be like, wait, who is this, right? Apologize, sir. This is Corey. I'm with SonicWall Security Operations Center. Your customer XYZ has been compromised. I need you to get up. That's what I would need, right? And so having that human element is huge. I don't care what you're reading on LinkedIn. There's people that are saying, as an MSP, you need to have a full autonomous SOC. No, that's not true. And I'll die on that hill till the day until I retire, right? Full autonomous SOC is not necessarily the solution, especially right now. So when a critical event comes, we will call you every 15 minutes until someone answers the phone for the first hour. Then we'll call you every hour at the top of the hour until someone answers. So Spencer has his phone on Do Not Disturb. He didn't add our SOC's number because we always call from the same number, but he didn't add it as a contact, so his phone never rang. So we're going to keep calling. Now, usually by a couple of hours, we've already taken mitigation steps. We've already contained it, but we still need someone on the other end. So by that time, it's been a few hours, right? We're gonna start looking at other solutions. While Spencer gave us, when he onboarded with us, he said, hey, call this number, this person, or these people when there's a compromise. During business hours, call these set of numbers. After hours, no one's answering. Well, usually it gets escalated, and we start looking at, okay, who else in this organization do we know? Can we call anybody else, right? While it's not on the initial playbook, we need to get someone on the phone right now. But that is what we do. First hour every 15 minutes, and then every hour at the top of the hour until someone answers the phone, knowing that we've already performed mitigation steps, knowing that we're going to continue to investigate and continue to monitor, but we need to get someone else on the other line as soon as possible. Okay, I didn't take a breath that whole time. So I think now is a great time for some Q&A. Let's see, do we have anything in here?
Looks like we do have one question so far. Is there any free tools that SonicWall has where you can check if you are breached and create a quick report to get the customer? I'm assuming maybe during the sales process, if you can check to see if a customer's been breached and kind of give them that data.
So the answer is no. Short answer is no. Longer answer is all of our offerings are meant for an expected clean environment, if that makes sense. However, that's not always the case. Usually, if there's some type of continued issue within within that organization, we typically see it during the proof of concept as well, right? Or when you first onboard the offering, we'll see it then. At the moment, we do not have a pre-sales, so you're looking at a potential compromise assessment. We do not have any free tools to perform to look for that type of, hey, is this already compromised with you, the MSP, going into it, right? And that's, unfortunately, that's a common scenario I see a lot. I see a lot of MSPs get a lot of great business by someone that, an organization that was compromised. They come to your organization and say, hey, we were compromised, help. And then that can carry over as a full-time customer for you. But usually in those types of situations, that's where a full IR needs to be performed, where either if it's by you, if you have that skill set or capabilities, if it's involving their cyber insurance, and then you working with that cyber insurance, because if I'm a dentist office and I've been compromised and all my machines are ransomed, I probably don't. It's a good bet to say I don't know how to properly recover from this, so I need to go to an expert. With any compromise, the experts should also be the ones that are helping coordinate and work with a cyber insurance company, because that dentist office doesn't know any better. Okay. All right. Is there anything else? So yes, sir. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool tools that are out there. Some are automated. I know there's a lot of automated, and Chester, you can help me if D&H provides any of these. I'm not sure. There's a bunch of automated kind of like pen testing solutions. Mm-hmm. I personally don't agree with a lot of them. I can't speak to all of them, but I don't agree with a lot of them, because anything automated doesn't give you a true realization of what's really happening in the environment, but it can give you an idea.
Yeah, we do have the ability to run pen testing through our pro services team through D&H. So if that's something that's needed, we can certainly line that up.
And this is the big advantage, right? The partnership between D&H and SonicWall /SonicSentry, right, is it brings you two different aspects. So it helps you, an organization where you don't have the vendor sprawl and have to deal with this vendor, this vendor, this vendor. You're working with D&H, who offers solutions like what we talked about today and what we're providing you. And they have a whole list of bunch of other solutions that you can get from that vendor. So you're not reaching out to multiple different organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah, really a one-stop shop. Such a strong partnership between the two.
It's all about that operational burden. It gets tough when you got to call so many different vendors. So I get it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I believe there will be a recording of the full webinar available if you want to check out the slide deck afterward.
Awesome. Okay. If there's no one else, I'm still figuring out how to use this this Q&A. I think that was it. We don't see anything else. Sir, I appreciate you having me on. I probably should have slowed down and took a breath in between there. It's what I do. Apologize for that. Thank you, everybody.
No, absolutely fantastic, Corey. Thank you so much. It was an incredible presentation, and hopefully we'll have you back soon. Oh,
to answer that quick. So we are Vigilance, right? So Vigilance is their SOC solution. We replace that. So we're providing the tool, we're providing the support, and we're providing the SOC services, which would be what Vigilance is. Same with CrowdStrike. I get the question, do you guys sell CrowdStrike Falcon, I believe it's called, or Overwatch? One of the two. I apologize. I have to spin up on my terminology here. We are, but that's just their SOC services, and we provide that for you. All right.
Last call for questions.
Awesome.
All right. Might be good to go.